We've got the lieutenant governor for the state of Missouri. He's running to be your next governor. Mike Kehoe's here. Mike, good morning.
Hey, Pete, good morning. It's a great day, and thank you for having me on.
Is it okay for you Missouri guys to come over to the Kansas side once in a while?
We just kind of tip our toe in the water over here and then go back to God's country. So it's a slight deviation. Alarm went off in our car. We'll go. It's like a backup beeper.
Yeah. You'll be all right. You'll make it.
We'll make it.
You're 5 minutes away from state line. You'll be back in no time. So, you're here in Kansas City. First off, what brings you to town as this governor's race heats up?
Sure. Well, part of our job is, working with small businesses, promoting businesses. Custom Truck's a huge business in Kansas City, Missouri. They have an affiliate company in Sedalia, so we went to that company yesterday, Trail King, that makes bodies for custom trucks. So part of our visit is an official piece with some of our small business work, and then some folks here in Kansas City were kind enough to have a reception for us last night to support our run for governor. So we're up here to see them, and then we're off to Columbia after we finish with this to see our firefighters group.
How about that? So, this governor's race starting to get a lot more attention from the folks as we get to 2024. It's yourself right now. There's three people who are considered the main candidates. Yourself, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, and then, of course, State Senator Bill Eigel. As people start kind of weeding through these candidates, you've been the lieutenant governor. People know that. What is the platform that you're running on when you look at this state and where you want to see it go moving forward?
Well, sure. I'm a small business guy. I've been 35 years in small business. I've had multiple business, employed hundreds of people. I've signed both sides of a paycheck. I think that's very important when you look at what's policy is happening. But I'm a person that wants to grow the economy. I'm not running on who I am. I'm running on what I want to do. And so you think if you look at my record of being able to cut over $2 billion in taxes, voted for every pro-life to preserve the sanctity of life bill since I've been in the Senate, protected Second Amendment rights, moving Missouri forward, continuing to move Missouri forward, being somebody that can hold on to their core conservative values but also govern, I think is where we're going to fit best. We know how to make those decisions and lead.
How about, on that front, there are going to be opponents of yours who will say, well, state under current leadership hasn't done enough in a red state to get some of those things done. How do you respond to something like that?
Well, if you look at the economic indicators that we have, whether it's tech startups, manufacturing, business-friendly place to do business, independent organizations have ranked Missouri in the top 10 in almost every category. There's always room for improvement. But we've gone in the right direction. When we had the COVID craziness, we didn't have draconian lockdowns and shutdowns. Our economy kept going. Missourians kept working. They were able to provide for their family. We're in a really good position now with some of our infrastructure work with I-70 and some of the other projects we've got going on to really have businesses expand and grow. And I think we can continue that, and I like we're going to be able to go in that direction.
When you look at some of the statewide organizations, I know you got a list of endorsements that you've gotten, and we've talked about this off the air. Endorsements don't win elections, but whether it's firefighters, Fraternal Order of Police, who are some of those folks, and what does that say about you and your campaign?
Well, we've had 18 endorsements, and I'll tell you, if you're a guy who came from a very humble background like I did, having these statewide groups come out and say, we think you're the right person to lead is very meaningful. 18 endorsements you mentioned at Fraternal Order of Police, Missouri State Highway Patrol Troopers Association, Missouri State Chamber, most of the agriculture groups, including cattlemen, corn, soybean, dairy. Those are all people that have members, and we want to make sure those members understand our message, and those members are working for us to get to the governor's race. And we think that is a good strategic alliance for us to have.
Mike Kehoe is the lieutenant governor. He's running for governor, of course, here in Missouri. So one thing that we talked about this morning, and you alluded to it right before we got on the air, fentanyl deaths, opioid deaths, are up 700% in Jackson County, Missouri alone. It's a crisis. We know Governor Parsons signed or agreed to that letter that other states put on supporting Governor Abbott last week in Texas. What can Missouri do on this illegal immigration issue, the opioid issue? We know where the fentanyl is coming from, China, Mexico, across the border. It's killing Missourians every day. What's the answer?
Well, let me just say, first of all, every state is a border state. You don't have to be Texas or Arizona to be a border state. Missouri is a border state in all fact because of what's coming up into our state. Fentanyl deaths, as you mentioned, Jackson County up 700%. Fentanyl deaths overall U.S.-wide in the last 3 or 4 years have about to reach 70,000 people. 70,000 people. It's the number one killer between 18 and 42-year-olds. We have to get tougher on what we're doing with the border. I was absolutely honored and really humbled to be able to, last October, deploy the 1251st National Guard Unit down to the border on behalf of the governor. So we're doing some of those things to support what Governor Abbott is trying to do down there. But we have to absolutely get tougher on crime. You've seen the picture. I think you posted the picture of an illegal alien who beat the heck out of some cops up in New York and got out of jail 4 days later. Mm-hmm. We have to stop coddling the criminals. We have mayors across this state who want to all of a sudden be, a state that wants to give money to these illegals, but at the same time cut back on police and defund the police. It's insanity. Mm-hmm. So we absolutely have to be in a position where we protect what Missouri's doing and keep those folks from getting into our cities and our neighborhoods and our children, so that we can make sure that Missouri continues to grow and prosper.
How about the prosecutor angle of this? We've got issues here in Jackson. I know St. Louis had a ton of issues the last few years. There's been some state legislation, I think, or consideration to doing something about some of these soft-on-crime prosecutors. Can anything really be done on that front?
I think so, and as governor, I can tell you that we'll do everything we can to make sure the right prosecutors win these races and stay in these communities. You mentioned St. Louis. We had a horrible prosecutor up there who was replaced by a guy named Gabe Gore, who's doing an awesome job, who's really making sure criminals stay off the street. He's prosecuting. He's making things safer in St. Louis. We like that. You've about to have a big election up here and this side of the state on that. But definitely we need to make sure we have legislation that would ensure, in that case, and there's several different versions of that, where an attorney general, if somebody's not doing their job, the state of Missouri needs to be able to step in and say, wait a minute, we're not keeping our streets safe. We're letting the bad guys out sooner than the paperwork that the police get done. Yeah. This is insanity, and we have to stop that.
And when it comes to Kansas City in particular, I know that you're well involved with the police, fraternal order police. The prosecutor, obviously has put a former KCPD detective, Eric DeValcanair, behind bars, and that was decided on by a judge. We're down 300-400 cops. I mean, that whole situation, I don't know how in tune you are with it, but what do you make of it, and what needs to change?
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I've met both Eric and Sarah. I've worked with Heather Hall on this issue. It's tragic where that family is right now. He needs to be home with his kids, not in prison. And we can't have a state where we ask law enforcement officials to risk their life and do their job and then send them to prison for doing their job. There's just something wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And as governor, I'd like to propose a statute change that would protect our law enforcement men and ladies from being persecuted for murder when they're doing a job that we train them to do. And so, you're right. It's that particular case is an example of why people are hesitant to get into law enforcement. Why do they want to get trained to do this? Why do they want to get trained to protect our communities? And then we turn against them. That just can't happen anymore.
Especially in the most dangerous communities in our state. I mean, that's the irony of the whole thing. World Cup, you were very involved in getting that here to Kansas City. I guess we're going to be finding out here in a couple of days.
Exciting.
Some of the teams that are going to be coming this way. So what should we expect from that here in Kansas City? Because there's a lot of people that don't know.
Well, first of all, there were a lot of people involved in that effort. Kathy Nelson is one of the rock stars of our state who really helped lead that effort to make sure we land at the World Cup. I was honored to be a part of that committee. What can we expect as a state and as a region here? It's going to be something like you've never seen before. I mean, the U.S. thinks they know about soccer, but you're not going to know anything until global people come to Kansas City in 2026. It will be the biggest economic impact our state has ever seen, estimated at over $950 million. And the ripple effect to the communities around the Kansas City area, all the way far as to Columbia or Springfield or St. Joe, will be massive. When these teams are announced and their folks travel with them, they travel heavy. They'll bring literally, middle school and high school kids with them and have tournaments while they're here from other countries. That's how into this they'll be. It is going to be one chance for us to really showcase who we are. And by the way, from a tourism standpoint, which I'm very involved in for Missouri, you can't buy the exposure that we're going to get from this World Cup. I mean, we're going to have opportunities here like nobody's ever seen. I know Kansas City's going to be ready. Our residents are going to have to be ready. The exposure is going to be off the charts.
Are you guys beefing at all with Kansas right now? I know you want them to chip in some money for this, and they've been a little hesitant. Where are you at on that?
I think they're going to come to the plate. We'll get there. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And the state is kicking in a decent chunk.
Yeah.
Already did.
Yeah, in last year's budget.
Okay, that was in last year's budget.
Yeah.
And then Kansas City's obviously kicking in. Is Jackson County, do you know?
It's a combination. There's some private sector folks that are also pitching in money, so it's a true kind of public-private partnership with a lot of obviously state funding from both the states going in there. but the effect and the investment that we'll have and the return on that investment is off the charts.
On the sports front, as we wrap it up, I know you're following the Royals. That sales tax extension is going to be on the ballot here in April for a 3/8 extension on that for the Chiefs and the Royals to split those monies. What do you think? The Royals want to move out of the K. They want to go downtown. They're looking at a couple of locations. From someone who's been involved in the sports economic development side, how do you think that plays out and should play out?
We need to make sure the Royals and the Chiefs, for that matter, stay in Missouri. There's about lots of locations that they're looking at, but they're Missouri teams. We need to keep them in Missouri. It's a huge effect on our economy, our tax base, and et cetera. It's who we are as a state on the west side of the state with Kansas City sports teams. We just need to make sure they stay in Missouri.
Okay. Mike Kehoe, Lieutenant Governor. He's running to be your next governor in Missouri as well. We'll do it again soon, Mike. Thanks for coming in.
You bet. I'd love to be on with you for your Pints and Politics sometime, and I'll take you up on that.
You are on the list. We've talked to your team already about that, so we're going to get that done this spring. How's that sound?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Mike Kehoe on KCMO.